Here's the keywords that I would say, and this is what that looks like in search, and you can see our competitors here, and you can see that this is kind of like the cycle of where you want to be.
There is a one place where we go and write the content, and there is one place where it comes to the copywriting.
You definitely had a struggle. You definitely had content that was, ideation and planning, and you became aware of that content maybe right prior to it being launched.
Try to actually work on all those pages together, or do you actually pick them as a cluster to cluster and then start working them in?
Dedicated copywriters or an editorial team for each business line.
Hello and welcome to the Agency Growth Lab. I'm your host Rohindu, and today we are thrilled to have a very special guest joining us, Matt Hepburn from Focus Visibility, who is a renowned expert in digital marketing and SEO. So Matt is here today to share his insights and experiences with us. So welcome to the show, Matt. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well, and I know it's not morning by you, but it's morning by me. So I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, it's great. I make you wake up at 5:30 in the morning, man. That's I really apologize for that, but I'm sure
Oh, it's all good.
very excited, and I'm sure there's a wealth of knowledge you've been carrying with yourself, and yeah, we're gonna more talk about it. So, Matt, really quickly, because everything gets started with a story. Every SEO I've come across was having some kind of a story. How did they get into this? So, can you actually tell us a bit about your journey in the SEO and the digital marketing industry?
Sure. So I've been in marketing for 27 years. Kind of dating myself. I was doing direct mail as a loan officer
Yeah.
for mortgages for
Oh,
13 years.
yeah.
So probably direct mail 9 years out of that 13, right? And then in 2008, the industry here in the US kind of crashed. And so I stayed until 2010, but I went from making six figures down to making I think 27.5 overnight. And so it was really rough. And at a certain point, Obama, our president at the time, kind of changed all the laws on mortgages and everything. And I said, I just can't run a business, learn all these new things, get certified that way. I said, I think I'm done. I think this is just the end of this.
End of the
So
era.
yeah, but so what I had loved though was, I was taking title data on people's houses, and I was doing mail merge, and I
Yeah.
was doing bulk indicia mail with a number 10 envelope. So it would just, the information would be in the envelope, and I would just have phone calls that were coming on demand to me on a weekly basis. I would mail out twice a week. So I learned like what are the gaps of when the phone calls drop. So you'd want to actually do mail drops fast enough so where it wouldn't affect your flow of inbound phone calls. So I said, how do I do this online? What does that mean? Right. And so I started experimenting, finding out what this thing called SEO was in 2010. And they were just really old guides. And I think everything that I stumbled upon that was online was how to get around Google instead of how to give Google what Google wants, right? So it was all around, I think the first 2 years were experiments with a lot of software. And then I got very frustrated and probably spent $10,000 a year on software and different things. And I said, I don't want to get around Google anymore. I just want to know what Google wants. What does that mean? And so that was my journey to kind of figure out what does Google want? What's a good experience for Google? And it all revolved around really good content.
Yeah.
And so when I first started, I think there were, there was definitely WordPress that was pretty new actually. But then there were some plugins like SEO Presser and different things by Daniel Tan and different things. So when I first started, there were heavy influence on underline, bold, and italic in your copy, and it
Yep.
looked very strange,
Yep.
very
I know it. I
and it
remember
r-
that.
right, and then it was, what is your keyword density, and so that was kind of the time frame that I didn't. I missed the golden era where it was like you could just get a few links and then you could just rank for anything. So
Yep.
that was like probably a few years before me, but
Right. Right.
in the 90s, I think. Um
Was
but
already getting little complicated, or maybe say like little tricky back in 2010, 11. I entered in 2012, so now I know the pain.
yeah, you knew the pain, like, and everything that you read was out of date. And if you tried it, it was like, oh, this doesn't work. So it was chasing down what worked, right?
Yeah.
And so when I started, I worked with a lot of lawyers. And so it's funny, I'm on the agency side, I'm gone back to that. And the reason why I've gone back to working with smaller businesses is that I can have a lot more impact with the amount of content that I bring, the type of content that I bring. I bring content clusters
Yep.
of content that are totally linked to each other, then linked up.
Yep.
And I guess it's staying agile, right? So how can you be agile, and how can you have a really nice uh, effort for the client that actually gives them a good result? So, and it's a hybrid result these days in
No, that's true. And
both.
yeah, a lot has been changed since then, especially since the era of AI has come through. The whole thing, the whole everything has been changed. The environment, the
Yeah.
ecosystem has been changed. So was it really exciting? Because I was reading it somewhere from a kind of a journey from being a college dropout and now a
Yeah.
successful enterprise level SEO marketer. So is that really like Matt look at himself back and then pat the shoulder for it and say, hey, been doing good the last 12 years.
No, I think that you're only as good as the last 6 months in SEO. So
Dynamic.
I I think you really have to evolve, right? So constantly evolve, especially with changes in our marketplace.
Yep,
So it's been great that I've been able to work with all these brands, and I've worked with companies like John Hancock on their Canadian side,
yep,
Manulife. Um, iSIMS was a big company here in New Jersey,
yep,
and then Convolt Systems. Those are the three main largest companies I work for. Now I'm working for a smaller company, Amend.io.
yep,
And so those are altogether, those are really the four companies. And then
yep,
I've done some did some agency work in enterprise as well, which kind
yep.
of got me into that. So
So when you say enterprise level SEO and it contains like thousands of pages, there are a lot of things to get changed. So let's say, Matt, you are coming on board with existing team or whatever, and then what is a kind of thing you really look at? Do you really try to actually work on all those pages together, or do you actually pick them as a cluster to cluster and then start working them in a segments? What is the kind of a short-term and long-term approach for the enterprise level clients?
so with enterprise, well, the first thing is and you can have an enterprise client who's considered enterprise, and it doesn't mean that they have, hundreds of thousands of
I,
pages. An average enterprise client, and why I say that is an enterprise client can be based off of the monetary value of what they bring to the table.
yep, yep,
How many hundreds of millions of dollars are they bringing, and they may have 1,500 or 1,800 pages.
yep,
So, but I guess enterprise just there's levels of complexity on the business and
yep,
how many business lines. Like John Hancock, I think I mentioned before, I think they had 16 business lines.
right,
So what that meant was multiple websites, multiple areas that are those business lines, and you cannot internally link from one to another because it's a compliance issue.
yes,
So, a lot of different issues that you have, and it's also your money or your life, because it's financial. So very, very important that the content conveys a lot of EEAT, and it's hard to get these businesses to that are writing in a corporate level
Yep.
to get them to switch over to say, bring in um, whoever your expert is as the author around an owner around a topic,
Mm-hmm.
and then have them, so if it was financial, like a certain type of bond or stock, so maybe let's just say bonds. So you have an expert or two or three experts on bonds, and they should be, have that within their bio. The bio should have author schema in it, should have person schema, and
Yep.
same as schema.
Yep.
And now actually these days, what I'm actually getting into with SEO on their bios is it should have educational schema and also alumni schema as to like where they've been, right? To like bring up their experience.
Yep.
Um, so it should back up all that type of information, and then they should be the go-to author, or they should be the person who, if it's written by somebody else but it's on that topic, it should
Yep.
say reviewed by, and they
Yep.
should be the owners of that
That
topic,
type. Yep.
right? And so that's part of it, right? And then SEO is just evolving so much with helpful content updates. So like, how can they change content to have a perspective of a personal perspective and information from the user? And that's kind of what's lacking in enterprise, because it's much easier to do on a smaller or mid-sized
Yep.
website, um, because it's written from the corporate perspective. And a lot of times it's bottom of funnel content in the buyer's journey. It's not top of funnel. Um,
So
so those are kind of struggles that you have. You're trying to say, I want to have engagement content for early in the buyer's journey that talks to the pain points of the user.
yep.
And that's where we can be founded for non-branded keywords.
Yep.
And then you're struggling against all of the marketing managers who just want bottom of funnel, and you have to explain to them over and over again that no, you have to understand that's for branded SEO. People already know the company when they're looking for these things here, and they're already on the website, versus we're
So
trying to do engagement early on before that. Yeah.
yeah, so how do they actually go? I mean, like when you're looking into the SEO side for these pages, there is a SEO and then there is a copywriting involved as well, because that
Oh
copy
yeah.
actually
Yes.
resonates the psychology of the buyer, the what is a kind of hook into the place, and you can't really go and stuff the keywords into the hook as well. So how do you manage these kind of things? Because the more copywriting gets involved, that's where the SEOs they do get weak a little bit, I guess, because they can't
Yeah.
really do the work they really want to do it, like putting on the right kind of keywords. Maybe the schema's all right because it just hides in the back end. So how do you guys actually make a win-win situation between the copywriting and the SEO?
So, and I'm sorry, I was really long-winded on what I gave you before. So I'm gonna also answer your other question from before, like how do we actually look at
Yep.
that? So it really depends on how many business lines that are in the business too. You might have dedicated copywriters or an editorial team for each business line, right?
Yep.
So, when I was at Manulife, there were 16 business lines. I'm not quite sure there were 16 uh, copywriters, but we definitely had an editorial team that they had people that were dedicated towards different things within there.
Yep.
And then there had business lines that I never didn't really even talk to, right?
Yep.
But you had tons of marketing managers on each one.
Yep.
So you definitely had a struggle. You definitely had content that was, ideation and planning, and um, you became aware of that content maybe right prior to it being launched. And so you were not giving keyword research up front.
Yep.
Um, and so so in those instances, you have to review it and you have to say, are these truly the keywords that people on this topic that people are searching for?
Yep.
And a lot of times in enterprise they're just keywords that are the, the slang inside the organization. It's not necessarily what people are looking for. It's how we identify that topic inside the organization. So you have to very gently talk to the people whose baby that project is and
Yeah.
explain to them that, like, look, here's what happens when I search for the keywords that you have for this content. Here's the keywords that I would say, and this is what that looks like in search. And you can see our competitors here, and you can see that this is kind of like the cycle of where you want to be. And
Yeah.
it's just at that case, it's like, okay, there's not much you can do except for change the page title, the meta description, the H1 tag, and maybe have them put it in a few spots, key spots within the copy.
Yep.
But I've actually seen that turn around in some. It really depends on how competitive it is,
Yep.
and it definitely depends on how it is internally linked.
Yep. So,
Um,
so
yeah.
Matt, have you ever come across, and that's kind of a question which just come to my mind, that there is a one place where we go and write the content, and there is one place where it comes to the copywriting. And Google, like they always try to put the users in front as a priority. So do you really think keyword SEO kind of thing, which can be done smartly on a copyrighted content, which is more about the psychology, the buyer purchasing and all that, can perform much better as compared to the plain content which any kind of a writer is writing out? Do you think that which one works much better for you?
So in my experience of the 14 years of doing SEO, the copy that I've seen perform the best has
Hmm.
actually been on a lawyer site that I had put together. And I had added, with my ghostwriters, 240 pages of content to their website.
Mhm.
And but every piece of content was reviewed by the lawyer before it went live to make sure the law was correct and everything like
Yep.
that. But I optimized it.
Yep.
I put the briefs together. I internally linked it. I'll give you an example. So I have a lawyer who I'd worked with that had, when I started with them, they had 54. I started with them in 2013,
Yep.
had 54 pages, and they had content on Blogger,
Yep.
and they had a really non-responsive website.
Yep.
So we did a lot of work. So one of the areas of practice was employment law. And so they had been doing two things. They had been doing their SEM, or their paid ads, to 3 different landing pages that I had set up for them. Prior to that,
Yep.
they were only on Yellow Books,
Yep.
or Yellow Pages,
Yep.
right?
Yellow
Phone
pages.
books.
Yep.
And so they did not want to spend the money for extra copy for no index pages that were there. So we made the decision that we would use the index pages. So this is the first, and this is 2013, you got to remember. So what I ended up doing was taking the topical areas of the law, right? Making landing page, like an index page for each main area of practice. And then I would have all these other, and was nesting them in URL structure.
Yep.
And I
For
didn't, right? So it was all, yeah.
like,
So I'm sorry, what?
how was the example like? I mean, like, let's say if it's an employment lawyer.
Right.
Um,
So it
then-
might be, I'm gonna bring it up so real quick, so I can kind of look at that and tell you that. So
okay, so it could be like employment lawyer Santiago, for example.
the good thing is I have the sitemap in the bottom of the site. So let me just pull up one real quick. So here's one. So here's an example. So I have practice areas in the URL, /employment law, /discrimination law,
Mm-hmm.
/sexual discrimination.
Yep. So you
So
down to a good
it,
extent in the slug
it
itself,
it's all nested in the URL,
in the
right?
URL.
And in the breadcrumb navigation.
Yep.
It's and this is not the end of that, so probably the end of the whole um, chain of structure has lawyers in the URL, but nothing else. Otherwise, it would look really strange to Google with these other
Yep.
ones. It's all about showing the relationship of that content
Mm.
and then have all of that content clustered. Um, so in this aspect, what I was doing is linking up to the main area of practice page and cross-linking. And I was doing topical clusters back in 2013 and didn't even realize that that was a thing, right? I didn't realize the importance of that. But
Yep.
the importance of that is that this content, they didn't have anybody providing content for 2016 up until just recently I started working with them again.
Yep.
Um, that content went from those 240 pages went from, I would say about 3,000, 3,200 keywords in Google to now close to 8 or 9,000 keywords,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they have over 518 keywords on the first page of Google.
Yay.
So, but what that, even though now, do I expect that to with all the freshness updates and everything? No, but it's just this is just showing the importance of like tightly topical clustered
Top.
topics
Yep.
being created by a copywriter, internally linked together. So the child pages that are down further are cross-linking across to each other. They're all linking up to each other. And if you looked at this, I have depending upon the area of practice, I have most of these are optimized for state geo specific, but then we
Yep.
have some that go down later that are county level. So the county level, we're going to call them page hubs, all link back up to the main
Main
state
state page.
pages.
Yep.
And then the county ones may actually have town level hubs underneath that
Yep.
that surround the office locations, right? So they are all and service area pages. So they're all kind of cross-linking and internally linking, and it's this big network. I
Yep.
think that's kind of what's missing in enterprise is
Yep.
that and I can give you a story on that. So um I'll give you an example. So I had a team come to me while I was at Manulife, and they were asking me to they had this new piece of content for a rate card, which is a financial rate card. And they
Yep.
said, hey, we have a 2022 rate card that's ranking. We want to rank this 2023 one. How do we do that?
Yep.
So this was a marketing manager who was coming to me, and the copy wasn't published yet. So this was the rare place where that was actually happening. So I was able to review the copy, identify all the keywords within the H1, the H2s, everything like that, be able to do a custom search with Screaming Frog
Yep.
of that area of the site of blogs that I could actually internally link from, and
Yep.
identify with those custom search with for those terms everywhere a list that I could then go vet and say, does this make sense to link from here up to this new piece of copy? I was also able to crawl that existing piece of copy on 2022 and say, like, where are we getting links internally to this?
Yep.
Right. And then be able to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. So the plan was then to say, we're going to switch all the links that are linking from 2022 to 2023. We're gonna link 2022 to the 2023 piece and vice versa back, right? So
Yep.
anybody who's looking can go backwards or forwards with that rate card.
With that.
Now we're gonna go vet those different URLs we found with Screaming Frog in the blog posts, and if they make sense, link up to the 2023 from there with the diverse anchor text. So what we are able to do was put in 43 or 53 new internal links and then update the old ones to the new piece.
To the
And
new
we're
piece.
able to, yeah, and we're able to, and that's just with internal linking. So I was able to get that piece of content ranked number one um, uh, in Google within 1 month.
Yep.
And just from changing, adding those links and changing the existing links. And pushed down the 2022, so it wasn't so prominent.
Yeah. So
So
you and then
yeah.
the takeaways could be like just have a better interlinking clusters together and have a more better content on the pages as well, which can resonate with the user itself, what they're looking for, and if those can get edited or go through editorial process by let's say if it's a lawyer, then it should be the editorial process done by the lawyer itself because they know their copy, they know what the things are really working for them as well.
So think about your money or your life, whatever the topic is, right? It should always go to the expert there, the copy that you're writing. So in this case, this was on an enterprise level that we're talking about with the internal links, but
Yep.
that had gone through all the marketing managers, all the
Ever.
copywriting department. So it had been vetted, and all that stuff goes through a compliance department
Oh,
too,
yeah.
to make sure that it's done correctly.
And
And so that's kind of what you need to make sure that it's done on the lawyer side, which is not an enterprise side, but it's being agile, right?
yep.
You still want the lawyer to review. You don't want to just publish because you
Yep.
might be publishing inaccurate. Think about it. You may have somebody who is writing who is a paralegal or something like that, has legal experience, um, but they may be in a different state or different area where they're writing from, and we have to make sure that the laws that they're writing are exact for the state that we're in. So that's why there's always, one or two different revisions that you can have in your copy
Yep.
that
How
is being
about the
done.
link building? How about the link building side? Because
So
most
so
sites,
link
um,
building is different when it comes to enterprise. If they do it, which is a big if, right? So it's a budget that you have to get approved. Um, So the type of link building that I it's a very frustrating topic when it comes to enterprise. So I've had one or two companies in enterprise do it.
yep.
And so I actually hired Garrett French's team over at Citation Labs. I don't know if you're familiar with Citation Labs. But Garrett co-wrote the book on link building with Link Moses.
Yep.
I don't know if you're familiar with him. Eric Ward, who passed a few years ago, but he was one of the first big link builders in the industry, and he did link building for Bezos on Amazon when it was first getting launched. And so like that's like a big thing. Like if you're working with Bezos and you're doing link building on Amazon when it's a bookstore,
Yep.
uh that's a huge thing. So yeah, so he passed a few years ago, but they wrote this book, and I was enamored with what the process of what they were doing versus what everybody else was doing.
I know there
And
was Eric Ward. Eric Ward was quite a
yeah,
famous
yeah,
uh, with link building as well.
yeah.
Yep.
The so what ends up happening is if you use an agency on enterprise, you want to have type of like a smashing magazine type of copy that's written.
Yep.
So it's usually and for the publisher that this copy is being put on, right? It is usually a comparison of like best tools or best whatever it is. So
Yep.
it's six or eight different comparisons of different companies,
Yep.
but they're not direct competitors to your company.
Yep.
And um and so that's great copy for the publisher. They're much more likely to publish that. And Google understands that it's not just an immediate link, one link on a page written to you. So it's much less likely to be seen as spam by Google. Higher quality content that's topically relevant on the sites that it's being pitched on.
Yep.
And the what I found is that it's usually niche specific, but it might be shoulder niche. So, for instance, if I'm trying to do link building for data protection site, I might have an IT site that is being pitched because that while it's close, it's not exact,
Yep.
and it's still category. If we look at link categories, it's really not that far off.
Yep.
So that type of link building is what I would do. And because they're writing all the copy for it.
It's
And
more easy to grab it.
think about this. So think about if you have a let's say you have a link target of 40 links per month or
Yep.
something very large,
Yeah.
right? The amount of copy that you have to write is more than 40 pages worth of copy, because you have when you have a great team that's doing outreach to these different sites, right? They have more than 40 websites that have agreed to actually publish. They
Yep.
have to create that content. What ends up happening is not all 40 of those websites or 40 plus that they did will remember or honor that agreement to actually publish. So they have to over create content of high quality content, and then they're doing follow up with those companies to see it get published. And sometimes there's a delay of a few weeks to meet your numbers, but it's pretty close. So I would say that's the way we would do it, and it's not as fast as doing the other methods that people would use that end up being PPMs and things like that that will really hurt your site. We don't want that. You can't have that. You have to have really high quality sites with an enterprise level, and I wouldn't want that on any site, a PPM type of thing. But that's kind of it for enterprise when it comes to link building. It is working with a really good agency, and I
Yep.
would say the difference is from working with a company that's like Fat Joe or something like that that does link building. Their links are probably about $500, or used to be about $500 per link. So you're probably paying, anywhere like $200 to $300 more per link for working with Garrett's team. But it's high quality. They're writing all the content. You don't have to worry about it being written by AI or plagiarism or anything like that. It's really well done, and you have good placement. So
Yep.
the
No,
hardest thing is getting the budget for that. So
yeah.
yeah,
To get the budget approved for why we're asking and that thing. Just a
yeah,
very final question is about Matt, for especially for local businesses like a plumber, dentist, lawyers, these kind of guys,
yeah,
how they can go about improve the EAT factors on their web pages.
yeah. So the first thing I have to do when we're talking about local, and that is that the search results have changed within the last 6 months. That's really changed dramatically. So if you had a if you had somebody who was ranking really well and organically in local, the LSA ads have pushed even the 3-pack down, the local
Yep.
3-pack or local pack, and then the organic has been pushed way down. So if they used to rank really really well organically, if there's a 3-pack there, they're far down. Now there's LSA showing up on pages that LSA used to just show up on pages that had the 3-pack or the local pack on it. Now it's
Yep.
showing up on pages that were organic that don't have the 3-pack or local pack as well. So they have to come up with a hybrid approach, which is those type of businesses that are eligible for a local service ad need to with their criminal background check and need to have a program. So it needs to be a hybrid program that takes priority for local ads first.
Yep.
Um, the optimization of their Google business profile and uh, Google business uh, posts and different things that will give signals to that will get them further out.
Yep.
If they have, and then they have content that actually helps. So I'll give you an example in a lawyer, right? So if a lawyer has local content around, let's say, their county that they do, if they created pages for the courts, the main courts that they actually are working in,
Yep.
right, and some basic information, and then did driving directions on those pages back to the office that is relevant to that, that is going to really help with the service area and the driving directions to get more about a lawyer near me around those areas.
Yep.
And that's simple things they can do with the copy and with the maps,
Yep.
right? So and make maps that have those in a map stack that have that information. Um, so yeah, those are things that they can do, but I would prioritize first with lawyers, plumbers, service, and those type of service areas businesses, LSA ads first, because
Mm.
they're trying to drive calls, right? So if you're trying to drive calls, you have to look at where if you look at organic, it is pushed so far down right now that at least with this, we'll call it a test with how Google's using local right now, um, that the organic results, the phone calls are just dropping off from organic because you have to, it's like going to the second page.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not the second page, but it's way far down. It's way far
yeah.
down.
It's
So
Google's getting weird with all these kind of things at the moment, actually.
but you just have to have a strategy that will you have to explain to them, like, you when we talk about being agile, right? Well, yeah, that worked for a while, worked for a few years, but Google's changing, and with AI, expect more changes still.
More
So
changes to
more changes to come. So yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
no, that's very true. No, that was really an exciting session, I would say, Matt. And especially, I know like a lot of things has been changing. Especially AI is getting more dynamic, you know that. And recently, when the Google they rolled out a helpful content update, a lot of sites they did get smashed. And but because the people, I guess, they were rolling out a lot of content using different apps, tools, and all that. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's where the March update came in, and they just de-index all those sites. And it was kind of a clear answer that, hey, we don't want the spam. I mean, like, can't you put
there
thousands of
there
articles in a week?
Yeah, there's so much that went into the March core update, that is crazy. And before we go there, I know you talked about EEAT. How can those businesses add more EEAT? So, I would say one of the easiest thing they can do is do some blog posts that have their perspectives of the lawyers or the
Okay.
plumber or the whatever,
Yep.
and tie and link that back into their content clusters
Yep.
topically,
Yep.
and wouldn't hurt for the I know, like, I don't remember how many, it's been so long since I've done a Google business post, but I think they're 150 words or something like that. So like if that's not a ranking factor, but it's a signal. So if you kind of talked about what you're going to talk about in the post, and you were I don't even remember if you can do, it's been so long since I did Google business posts, if you could do links from there to the post. I think you can,
We
or
can.
used to be able to. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would link down from there. I would do a post introducing the post that we're talking about that has the personal experience
Yep.
on a topic. And so I had Lily Ray on my podcast last year, and she said it this way. She said, if you and she's the queen of eat besides Dr. Maria. Um, so that those two are just amazing. But she said it this way: if you had 4 or 5 websites that were writing AI content about cardiology or heart attack or something like that, and then you had a cardiologist who was creating content with 20 years worth of experience and was giving his humble opinion on what's the best way to avoid a heart attack. I guess that's the topic for all 5 of those sites or 6 of those sites. The Google is supposed to lean into the cardiologist because they have more EEAT. I take all this stuff with a grain of salt. I add the stuff for the EEAT, but I've seen stuff that doesn't have EEAT outperform stuff that does. So it's maybe Google hasn't crawled that all that content from the different competitors yet. There's probably a lot of factors there, but yeah, I would add that. I would definitely add that in there. If they could have a section of their blog that gives their perspective on things,
Yep.
or tips and trends, or whatever it is. um People might really relate to that, versus something that's very broad and that's not written um to the perspective of feeling like it's connecting with them, you know. So I would definitely do anything that you're going to
Help
get more
increase.
engagement, right? So I would think if we're thinking of the user, right, and then we look at the content in analytics and we say like and Google Search Console, and we say what's getting more impressions, more clicks, and what's getting more traffic to it. I would focus in on that, and I would also focus in on what content on your site is getting 0 sessions, and um, probably nuke that content that's getting 0 sessions, because
Good.
that is affecting the helpful content update. Yeah.
Exactly. Google doesn't want that kind of thing. So yeah, a regular Google Net Analytics kind of a spy. I think Screaming Frog or something, we can do it really quickly as well. We can just hook it up. We can
Yeah.
see, okay, particular pages are not getting any kind of impressions, not getting any kind of like engagement as per analytics as well. So it's much better to actually prune that content. So yeah, it just
Yeah.
because maybe
I
maybe or maybe 301 that piece to something else which is working much better. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
I would definitely look at sessions. And if you're talking about enterprise level, you want to look at all sessions because the content might be used for other channels.
Yes.
So, and then I would say 4 months or 6 months worth of sessions each month side by side for those
Yeah.
different pieces of content. And then you could show that there's a history there, because you might have to actually prove the value of, hey, this content, I know you love this content, but nobody's looking at it and it's actually hurting your site.
Yes.
Because with the, unless they're going to rewrite it and put something that gives a nice freshness update, I would
The
actually consider, I know Eli Schwartz just
pruning.
made yeah, he just made a comment on this yesterday, I think, on LinkedIn, that it might be actually better to nuke that type of content versus try to refresh it. Really depends on how, you know, that freshness. You'd have to add a lot of value to make it, which is almost like rewriting the whole post, right? So
No, that's pretty good, man. And yeah, just a final question, man. If anyone wants to know more about you, want to read your stuff, videos or anything like that, what is the best way for that? Is that your website, YouTube or LinkedIn, whatever?
probably the best way is the podcast, which is we're just started up this. We had an old podcast which was called the EMJ podcast, which I kind of
Okay.
vacillated on what topic I was going to cover.
Yeah.
And so we've kind of changed. So I'll be real quick on this. So I did a whole bunch of episodes last year, and then I realized I was starting to get upset with the podcast. I
Okay.
wasn't
Okay.
finding the value with the podcast, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of jumped into podcasting and with both feet, and had a lot of fun and some great guests, but I didn't have a audience premise. I didn't have a premise for the podcast really.
Yeah.
I was just doing interviews, and originally I wanted to give strategy, right? So
That's right.
I
Yeah.
decided I said, you have to change, right? And so I stopped for 6 8 months. I just paused
Yeah.
everything, and I came up with a strategy saying I want to have a strategy with every single episode. So
Yeah.
if I have a guest or if I don't have a guest, right? So I
Yeah.
want to have a separate blog post that breaks down the episode and a strategy
That's
from
right.
that,
Yeah. Yep.
that step by step for the user, that so it's a micro strategy, right? That they can take and they can easily implement.
Yeah.
That's it, right? So I said, I don't see anybody doing that. So I said,
Yeah.
that's what I
Now,
want to do.
is that all live or is that yet to be
So
live?
it's no, it's live. There's 1 or 2 episodes there. There's a bunch that are in editing queues, so they're going to go live.
Yeah, yeah. Do send me the link
Um,
and put it in the
yep.
video
It's
description. And
yeah,
people wants to
it's in chat. So
oh, yeah. So is at the podcast.focusvisibility.com.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Because I think it is a kind of a thing which is really required because a lot of people they do absorb the information, but they don't really know like what to do next, what is the real process is and all that. And that's where I guess it is really be helpful. to have such kind of things in place.
The other thing that I realized that you can do with a podcast like that is that
Yep.
you can tie topics together. So you can have a theme. You can say this month I am going to be talking
Going
about
forward.
indexation or whatever it might be, right? And you can have a few
Yep.
different episodes and you can tie them all together as a different, this here's step one, here's step two, here's step three.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's an awesome idea, actually. That's a very good idea because I guess a lot of people do like that. I was just checking in. I mean, like when you were talking, I was checking in this Google indexation validation with the Marco and Yanni. So yeah, and in that one, there is a proper step-by-step process and everything you have mentioned. Okay, go to that, go to this, and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
Along with
we're
the
starting.
resources as well.
Yeah, no, so we've evolved it now. So we're creating not just having it in the show notes, but what we want to have with each episode is a blog post
Yep,
that is associated with it that has just, hey, you can print this out, you can do whatever.
exactly right. Exactly right.
So
That's super
yeah,
important. No,
yeah,
definitely. I can link it your podcast page in the video description as well once it goes live. All
fantastic.
right. Thanks for that, Matt. I really appreciate the time you have given us today, man. It was really good. And few of the things you have mentioned about, especially how to go about doing the enterprise level SEO for the particular pages as well, how to cluster those things out together. It really gonna help us out if you put those things in action. I know like it is really be super helpful to see the consistent growth in the website.
I'll just leave you with one thing on enterprise. When it comes to analyzing your website and deciding what you're going to do, it's usually technical
All right.
versus content. So where can you make the most with technical? Because you are usually limited as to the content that you can have created for you on the enterprise side.
Yep.
So I'll leave it on that, and because everybody can do technical. So
That would be great. All right. Thanks for that, Matt. I really appreciate it once again, and wish you luck for the future endeavor as well, Matt.
all right,
Thanks.
stay in touch.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Great. Bye bye.